The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Nice to have Jenna Cottrell back from the front lines of the Buffalo Bills. Talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, Bills bye week is here, so am I.
All right. Mike Catalana?
Yep.
Pat Duffy? What do you got on this
Well,
week?
with all the super team drama going on with the Golden State Warriors, I figured I'd throw it back to a team that knew how to punch each other in the face and curse and keep it quiet. The Scottie Pippen throwback jersey today.
And it's interesting you mentioned know how to punch him in the face, because who did Michael Jordan punch in the face in practice?
Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr, Warriors head coach. It all comes around. Isn't that nice?
Hey, let's talk a little bit about football in general. You know, you go through, do you ever sit there among this crowd and just wonder why? You know, like, why we attach such importance to this?
I mean, I think it's the fact that how beloved the game is and how popular it is, and also the fact that these guys are getting paid millions upon millions of dollars. And when the team is not seeing the results like they have this season, I think people want to know, what's going on, what's their frame of mind, who can I be accountable to? And I mean, it makes sense. The fans keep coming in, so they want answers.
But I was thinking back, why do we care so much? I mean, it goes that there's any number of things involved in that, but it seems like that's the primary thing for me, was when I used to do the same thing years ago, Wednesday afternoons. Why do we care so much?
I mean, it's interesting. I as a Bills fan, what do you guys think?
Well, I think, to Jenna's point, it's not just interesting what players say, it's how they react. And the LaShawn McCoy thing, I think, is an interesting example. I don't think anybody is going to hold somebody as accountable for not saying something bad about a teammate or not ripping them. But standing up and being accountable, as in, I think that is a form of being accountable, even to the fans, to say, look, if things aren't going well, stand up and answer questions. It's sort of like you accept the fact that it hasn't gone that well. The problem with this Bills season is, for most of the year, the narratives have been kind of the same. Bad quarterback play, losing games, wondering about the whole process, defense way ahead of the offense. So it's sort of stagnated for a while. But yeah, I don't think we necessarily hold on every word that they say. I think it's the way people react, not always necessarily the exact words that they say.
Well, I mean, to the original question, why do we care so much, whether it's hanging on the words or what this team does? In its most simple thing, it's tribal, right? Like, we in Western New York have a little bit of an inferiority complex. So what are we known for? The Bills and the Sabres and Syracuse basketball, if you want to lump that in there. I've had my Bills season tickets for years. My dad had his before mine. And there is nothing like, and there's nothing like it anymore in society today, being at a place with 72,000 people that are all minded the same way you are. 72,000 like-minded people who all want the right things to happen. And when things are going well, it's the greatest feeling in the world. When things aren't going well, I want them to go well. And the guy that's leading my tribe, whether it's Sean McDermott or whoever head coach, you tell me why it's not going well. And if I don't like that answer, well, I'm going to get together with the rest of my tribe and we're going to talk about it on sports radio. I'm going to write the editorial board or now get on blogs and things like that, social media. I want to be a part of something big, and you are the leader of that big thing. So you better tell me what the heck is wrong, and you better fix it soon, or I'm tweeting about it.
I'm watching the game sometimes, and a guy gets seriously hurt, or there's a big collision and stuff, and every once in a while I feel almost ashamed to be such a fan of a game that seems to treat humanity with such disregard sometimes. Is that overstating it?
Yeah, I think a little bit.
Yes, Bill.
Only because, one, I wanted to stop you for a second. There are not 72,000 people who think like you at all.
Says man who thinks like nobody.
Okay, and secondly, the reason I say that is because it is a game guys have chosen to play, and you are a fan of the game. I would say if it didn't bother you or you didn't feel anything to see somebody take a big hit or get injured in the game, then that would be different. I'm a fan of the game. I never was a fan of the crushing hits and a guy taking the other guy out of the game. I enjoy the game to watch. I didn't play in the NFL. I have nowhere near the idea of what those guys really, really go through unless you play the game. I don't think you should feel guilty enjoying the football game.
I think I understand what you're saying, right? Because I've had the experience as an adult of being on both sides, right? Before I had my job in the media, I was a fan, and now I'm still a fan, but I get to meet these guys and be around the team. Before I got my job in radio, I was that guy who cheered open ice hits, right? When Umberger gets knocked unconscious at center ice, I'm standing up and cheering, and I'm waiting for those collisions across the middle. And then I get this job in radio, and you start meeting these people, right? And you see their families show up at training camp, and you realize that they are the same guy you are, just trying to put food on the table for their families. And in that aspect, it changed for me. I can't watch hockey fights anymore. It really bothers me. When I see a guy take a shot in the head and him go limp, instead of cheering like I did 10 years ago, I'm sitting there with my fingers in my mouth like, oh my God, I know that guy, and what's his wife going to do and his kids for the rest of his life? I think that we see these athletes as commodities instead of human beings. Right? And as much as they're giving us more access to these people, it's still hard to have that personal relationship with someone when you're not standing next to them and hearing what they actually have to say. And I think those guys understand that for the most part, right? Like we're going to buy their jerseys and they're going to make more money because we see them as something they're actually not. So, yeah, when you're on your side of it, yes, I get where that uncomfortability comes from.
This is the Rochester Press Box. We're presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. We'll talk more about the Buffalo Bills next. The Press Box is brought to you in part by Bay & Goodman Pizza, a local Rochester favorite. Corner of North Winton and Browncroft, Bay & Goodman Pizza. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. So, Bills Jets. I got my kids out in different towns. I'm almost texting them play by play. It's so unbelievable right out of the gate. Where did that game come from?
Well, I think for whatever the reason is, they actually had a good game plan offensively, and Barkley executed it, and then players started to respond. And the Jets were a team that was in bad shape to begin with. And it did not look good, obviously, for Todd Bowles in the way they played. But I'm going to give the Bills credit. Look, you can blame the Jets all they want. They were terrible, and they started to, nobody wants to hear the word quit, but that team did not look like they were playing well. But they hadn't quit on the first play of the game, and they hadn't quit on the second play. And the Bills, for the first time, looked like a version of a 2018 offense. Yeah. They threw the ball down the field. They made plays. They ran. Wide receivers adjusted to the ball. Let's just take it for what it is. Matt Barkley played like an NFL quarterback. It's the first game they've had all year that way. And they played, and Brian Daboll did a good job.
What were you thinking?
I mean, anytime you can get Matt Barkley out on the field with Robert Foster, you got to watch out for that. I don't get it. And it's frustrating because you have that game and the Minnesota game, right? Two unbelievably great offensive performances in the first half. I mean, this Minnesota game, they took the foot off the gas. But, explain to me the rest of them. Okay, so Daboll can come up with these game plans to fit the strengths and weaknesses of his players. How are you winning by 30, winning by 20, or losing by 20 with one of the best defenses in the league? I cannot wrap my mind around how they are either phenomenal or horrible, with the exception of the game against Tennessee. It makes zero logical football sense.
But I think when you look at the carousel that has been at quarterback, it's hard to establish a routine under center, and therefore I think you're relying on your defense every single time to go out there and win games. And at some point, something's got to give with that.
You're not wrong. But it's not like Josh Allen came back and settled things down. Right. You had a guy that hadn't started a game in 2 years, that had been in the building for 10 days. And by the way, I know everyone's celebrating McDermott and Daboll this week. This kind of makes them look really bad. It was your fifth choice at quarterback that finally was able to put something together.
Absolutely.
Not McCarron, not Peterman, not Josh Allen, not Derek Anderson. The guy that was like, come on, just do it.
What was the role he played? I mean, they did the same thing with Derek Anderson. They brought him in cold, and it didn't go well.
Yeah.
But Barkley...
Anderson is done. Anderson I think he knows that he's done. I think he came in to be more of the mentor. Yeah. Matt Barkley still thinks he can play. He's not that old. He's a guy that's been, 7 years, I guess, since he was drafted. So he still is thinking, I can show everybody, and I can get a job, whether it's Buffalo or another place. I said to you guys, and and you've gotten on me about the whole thing, but I said to you, McDermott has made every wrong decision about quarterback. Up to this point, his best decision was when he took Peterman out and put Tyrod back in. He sort of had to do it last year. Mm-hmm. His second best decision was this past week, not just because Barkley played well, forget about that. It was the idea that he did not force Allen back in on the field earlier than he should have. That tells you how bad his decision-making has been at quarterback to this point. When your second best decision is to play Matt Barkley after he had been in camp for 2 weeks.
Jenna, what was
Why are you looking at
Because it
me?
was a decision. Adler was not going to play. We all know that. Listen, he can have him throw with his sleeve on all he wants while the
Well, he
cameras are
could
on.
have started Peterman.
He could have, yeah.
No, you couldn't. That's just it. The decision was made for him. The decision was made. You were forced to start another guy on 10 days experience with an offense because of the poor decisions you made. So I want to hear no credit to McDermott.
Oh, no.
No, I think McDermott got very lucky. No one could have expected Barkley to have this
And
performance.
I'm saying is his decision-making has been so bad when this is the second of your two good decisions
It's
on
not even
quarterback.
good. You got one. You're still with one.
But the confidence that you can build from this, having LaShawn McCoy get 100 yards, having 2 touchdowns, him in the end zone, the fact that Matt Barkley at least made his receivers look competent, that confidence cannot be undersold, especially going into this part of the season where they have a lot of, I don't want to say easy games, but definitely winnable games.
And the playoff run begins.
Oh my God.
Ralph, you know what's going to happen, right? We're going to be in the hunt with 3 games to go. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Like it or not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box trivia answer brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. We forgot to make our picks last segment. Actually, it's not a we, it was a me. So let's. We're going to pick this week because the Bills aren't playing. We've got the Chiefs Rams on Monday night. We're going to pick that one and one other.
Okay, I like the Chiefs. I mean, come on, let's be real here. You're picking 2 of the same team here, but I think that the Chiefs are just a little more accomplished right now. Plus, Cooper Kupp down for the Rams. I think the Chiefs with the points straight up.
Mike?
Interesting game that one is because it was supposed to be played in Mexico, then they moved it back to Los Angeles to play it. Normally, the other team has all these fans who had prepared to go out to L.A. Well, that hasn't happened. I don't know what that stadium's going to be like. The Chiefs should win the game. I don't know why. The Rams are not better than them, but I'm going to take the Rams back at home. What's interesting about that game is those fans didn't want those two teams. They liked the Cowboys, the Raiders. Those are the real popular teams. I saw a stat that said those teams were ranked like the 15th and 16th most popular teams. They would have gotten the best game of the year.
And they could have had the Raiders Cardinals, too.
Right.
They're playing this week.
That's true.
Jen, who you got in that game?
I'm going to go with the Chiefs as well. I just think going off of what Duffy said, I think they're trending in the right direction. I know the Rams obviously are very good as well, but I just think the Chiefs will have it this week.
Got another game for us?
I was going to go Panthers-Lions. Panthers, all
right?
The Eagles, my Eagles are... No, they're not totally done yet because the division is what it is. They were terrible on the Sunday night game. The Saints are considerably better than them. But it's the only time I've taken the Eagles this year. I got to win with them. I'll take them getting 9 points. I think the Saints have been fantastic. I think they have a very good chance to go to the Super Bowl. I think they'll probably win the game. But I think the Eagles will play them tougher, and I think they'll stay in the game.
Already, I like.
Wow, that's good
I like the Rams at home. I like the Redskins at home getting points against the Texans.
Broncos are 7-point dogs against the Chargers. I like the Chargers, but it's impossible for them to win by 7 points with Phillip Rivers frantically trying to score the game-winning touchdown, right? No, so the Broncos are going to cover that 7 points against the Chargers.
Like it or not, Carmelo Anthony's situation.
Come on. I said it weeks ago, and I'll say it here again. Carmelo Anthony is the James Dean convertible of basketball players because there are a bunch of people who think he's going to do great, and everywhere he shows up, he turns into a disaster. You had to see this coming. Who didn't see this coming except for the front office of the Rockets?
Yeah. You still have a soft spot for him because of what he did at Syracuse?
No, because he's never evolved as a player. In life, you do need to evolve. And
I'm sorry.
There are people like you and I, we evolve, and then there's some that never will. But the idea behind it is he's never evolved. Yeah, he can still score points. That's great. He is an inefficient player, and he couldn't play on a team with one of his best friends, Chris Paul, on a team that could have made the finals last year. I don't know who wants to pick him up because he hasn't changed. If he changed just some of his game, I think he could still play in the league for 5 more years, but I don't think he wants to.
This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business is next. And now here's this week's MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
Came now to Eichel. He floated one. Score!
Bacon, egg, cheese. Only one way to make this better. Another one. Dunkin' Go-Tos. Get 2 bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches for $5. America runs on Dunkin'.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us on the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business, brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Pat?
This coming week, the night before Thanksgiving, a game that was supposed to be a huge deal for the NBA this season. King James and his Lakers headed back to Cleveland to play the Cavaliers for the first time since he left. And this guy got a ticket a couple of months ago. And I got all excited about it. I'm going by myself because my wife and kids don't want to go, and I'm fine with that. I'll just have a couple of beers and enjoy. But as I get closer to this game, the less excited I'm getting about it, because the Lakers aren't really any good. And LeBron isn't getting mad about it and doing anything, which I thought he was going to. And Luke Walton still has his job, which I didn't think he'd have at this point. And the Cavaliers are terrible, and they all hate each other. Also, I'm now realizing, reading things, that the fans in Cleveland are going to welcome LeBron back with open arms. I spent $200 on this ticket. And what am I getting? A bunch of folks welcoming back a .500 basketball team for a guy that won a ring for him 2 years ago. Can I have a little more drama? I was there for the first game that LeBron went back as a member of the Miami Heat. And the boos in that arena were so deafening, my eyeballs were shaking. That's a true story. What am I going for now? $200 ticket, $20 beers, and a $15 hot dog? Anybody want to buy a ticket to Cleveland?
This return is so much different than that first one, isn't it?
I don't know how I didn't think it was going to be this way when I bought the ticket. Okay.
My unfinished business, Duffy, I think, is going to freak out, but I think that the Bills have finally lucked into their quarterback situation, and I can see him absolutely freaking out. But here's the thing. Josh Allen appears to be healthy, and Sean McDermott said if Allen is healthy, therefore Allen will be the starter, which is good. I didn't think the rookie should be playing this early, but he already has. You can't bench him. Then going from there, Matt Barkley's stock could not be any higher for him. He looked competent in the game against the Jets. He was able to move the ball. He was able to score touchdowns. It looks like the Bills have at least found a backup that would be reliable in this case. Then you have Derek Anderson. He's still in concussion protocol. I don't think when he came to the Bills he thought he was going to play. He's going to be that mentor role. He did it with Carolina with Cam Newton. I think he's going to fill that position with the Bills. And then the most important piece of this puzzle is the fact that the Bills finally moved on from Nathan Peterman. We knew what Peterman was. The Bills kept trying to fit him into their lineup. Wasn't working then, wasn't working now. Peterman gone. I think the Bills finally have got it right.
In your estimation, is Barkley the kind of guy who would be content to be a backup if, because he's secured himself a second chance at a career year?
I was going to say, I think a lot of guys, if you're in the league, you're a competitive guy. I think everyone would want to be the starter, but I think he's someone that kind of had a resurgence of his career after this game, and I think he would be okay with, being the backup and having that opportunity to play.
Which all that leads right into yours.
Yeah, because I want to talk about Nate Peterman. Nate Peterman deserved to be released from the team. He had not played well enough, and he certainly should not have gotten the opportunities to start that he did. And this is where I put the blame on the Bills organization. I said it at the beginning. He played before he was ready. We talk about these first-round picks being ready. This guy's a fifth-round pick out of Pittsburgh, and you put him in the middle of a playoff race, and that may have destroyed his career. But he is a tough guy. Mentally, he came back, and he started again when he should not have been the starter. And then they kept him in the lineup because they didn't have the foresight to bring in another guy. But my biggest problem with Nate deserved to be cut. He did not play well enough, and go ahead and criticize him as a player. But some of the reactions from people, I get it, that's 2018, and there's going to be all this vitriol. But the hate for Nate Peterman as a guy, and then the media people, some of them taking such big pot shots at him personally. I say it again. He wasn't good enough, did not deserve to be on the field, and deserved to be released from this team. But the hate for an individual person just because he wasn't good enough for your team is a bit much for a young guy whose career really is just starting and maybe never should have started that way in the first place.
This is just life as we know it today in social media, right?
Yeah, and if he was a guy who was lazy, if he was a guy who got paid millions of dollars and you thought he didn't do his job, He's a 5th-round draft pick, and by all accounts, and we've been around him, a good guy. I hope he finds a place somewhere else in the league. I just think his time in Buffalo is long
Will he?
gone. Oh, he'll be in a camp next year. Some teams bring quarterbacks in all the time. He's still a young guy. They're always looking for quarterbacks at some level to develop. He'll be in a camp. That doesn't mean he'll end up on a roster.
This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse Unfinished Business, brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. Jen, great as always. Good to have you back.
Thanks, guys.
Guys,
Thank you.
we'll see you next week.